In the previous video, we talked about accidentals, and we also touched a little bit on tones and semitones. Now, if you remember, tones just meant you were skipping a whole note and going to the next. Semitones was just direct. So there's a very important use of this whole tones and semitones, and that is the major scale format. So what is a major scale, first of all? So major scales, in fact, what's a scale? Right? Major, we can come to that later. A scale is actually pretty simple. It's just a pattern or a sequence of notes, right? That just repeats after the scale is over. So a scale would be kind of like one of the most common scales, and this in fact is a major scale, would be do, re, mi, right? The do, re, mi, you might have heard it, but it just goes like this. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? That's a scale starting in some note. I don't really know what note it was, but it is a major scale. There are also minor scales, and that sounds a little different, but overall we're just going to talk about major scales in this video. So a major scale has this format in terms of tones and semitones. So if you look at it, this it's just tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So what does that mean? Well, you can start on any note, in fact, in a scale, right? You could start on a pretty low note. You could start like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Or you could start a little higher, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Right? So, like when you kind of think of it this way, you could also look at it on the piano as starting on different notes. Right? So, say I wanted to start on this note, and after a while, you should try to understand what note it is on the piano. Right? This is the G note, right? And you'll just get the hang of it if you like look at that picture, a picture of any classical, like a piano with the names written on it. If you see two black notes, that means the one previous to it would be C, and the one in front of it would be E. If you see three black notes, that's F and B. So yeah, that's how I remember it, I guess. So anyway, so if I wanted to start on this G note, then I would just play all those notes and end up on the final G. That's how a scale is. You have to start on one note and on that same note, but an octave higher. But what notes do I play? Right? I could play this note. This could be do. But what's re? Could re be this? Is re this note? Is re that note? Well, it's all based on this tone, tone, semitone. And then tone, 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 semitone. But so if we look at it, the first note has to be a tone away from the second note. So if we're starting on G, or in fact, let's just start on C. C is so much easier. So if we start on C, we're going to be going a tone higher. Remember, tone means skip one note, go to the next. So C to D. D is your re. Remember, do, re. And then we have another tone, right? So it was tone, tone, semitone. So we go tone, and then another tone, C, D, E, and then semitone, E, F, right? There's no note in between, it's just a semitone. And then again, tone, 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 and then semitone, which is just this, because there's no black note. So look, C scale is super easy, because it's just all these white notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. But what if I started on G? Well, that would be a little different. It would be tone, which was just G to A, tone again, G to B, semitone, B to C, tone, C to D, tone, D to E, another tone. Now remember, a tone means skipping one note, so I would skip that F and go to F sharp. So if you look at it, I went to G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. And then finally, semitone, which is just this, right? It's a direct note. So G. So overall, the G scale is pretty simple, but it just has one exception, which is that F sharp instead of F. You don't play this F, you play F sharp. So G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And that's it. It's pretty simple, right? You can virtually find out any scale using this tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone format. But, like, people don't always do this. Like it's kind of confusing, or it's just honestly kind of difficult to keep like breaking down all the scales and finding out, oh, should I play F sharp? Should I play C sharp? It's a little difficult. So what we do is we memorize it. It's just like any times table, right? You don't just keep adding notes. So if you look at this is a list of all the scales and what sharps or flats they have. Now, an important thing to remember is flats, you shouldn't view them as something like scary or foreign. Flats are just sharps, but a different name for it, right? They're all accidentals, they're just black notes. Now, if you look at this, the C major scale, remember we didn't play any sharps, but in the G major scale, we played an F sharp. You could also say that we played a G flat note, but we just call it an F sharp because it's a lot easier. Now, we write it on this top F line, because writing it over here, we could also write it here, remember this is the F space, but we don't write it here because of convention. Convention is a very important thing in music. It's kind of annoying sometimes, but it's really important for you to be aware of these conventions. Now, D major scale, if you do that tone, tone, semitone thing again, we're just going to get F sharp and C sharp, and we just keep going, right? The same thing for F. F just has a B flat. B flat major just has a B flat and E flat. So the way you find out is just you find the symbol and what line it's on. This symbol is on the B line. So it's going to be B flat. Here we have E line, E flat. That's how we know that the B flat major scale has B flat and an E flat. And it makes sense, right? Because it's called B flat. So whenever you play a B, you just be playing B flat instead. Whenever you see an E, you're playing E flat instead. So yeah, that's pretty much how scales work. It's very simple. You could just go straight ahead and just mug up all of this. But I'd say for a beginner level of piano, or any instrument for that matter, you should just like memorize these 7, I guess, the first 4, and these 3. That's the basic stuff. But of course, eventually you are going to need to know all of this, but that's in more advanced levels. So again, you could just go ahead and mug up all of this. But there are some easier ways for people who aren't very good at memorizing, like me. So what you could do is this very nice pattern thing called the circle of fifths. So it's a little confusing at first, but try to write it in tables, and sort of like a times table, and it'll become a lot easier. So one thing you should always do when you're in the circle of fifths, you should always start on C, right? For scales, that is. So you start on C, and then you go up 5. So that's C, D, E, F, G. Now you can count with me if you want, because like with your fingers, because we're just going up C, D, E, F, G. So then we go to G, that's the next scale that we're going to talk about. And then we go up 5 again, D, 5 again, A, and then we just keep going. So this 5, right, we keep going up, and we have a list of the major scales. But what does this list even mean? Well, that's where these sharps and flats come in. Well, another thing to memorize is that we should always start on F sharp for the G scale, right? Then we can start going up 5 again. So F, you start on F, you go up 5. That's F, G, A, B, C. So the next sharp to add is the C sharp for the D scale. And then here, the next sharp to add, C, D, E, F, G, is a G sharp. So we have this C scale where there was no sharps, no flats. This is something that you should mug up, something you need to remember. And in G scale, we have that F sharp. That's also something that you should mug up. But then, if you want to know all of this, it gets pretty simple, because all you need to do is just go up 5 here. And remember, for the sharps, we're adding sharps, not like replacing them. But here, we're going to the different scale, so you're not going to have the GD scale or the DAE scale, right? But here, we're adding all these sharps. It's a accumulation of accidentals. And it goes the other way too, except this is down. So if you look over here, we have this C, we started with C. Let's go down. Going down is a little harder, but like you'll get the hang of it. So it's C, B, A, G, F. So now we have this next scale, which is F. We go again for B flat, and then we just keep going. Now, another thing to remember, F scale has the B flat note. That's another thing to mug up. So you just kind of have to mug up these three. That's it, I promise. And then we just go down fives from B flat. So we had B flat. So we can call it just B because it makes things easier. So B, A, G, F, E. So now we have this E flat. So again, accumulation of flat notes. So we just go down. And then we know that the B flat scale has these these flats, and the E flat scale has these many flats. So that's pretty much it. You're done. Like this, if you can remember this, you're good to go for scales. But one thing I do personally, and this is just a kind of like a bonus round, a tip that I have, at least for the sharps, to memorize sharps, is that when we're talking about, again, you just have to do this 5 circle of fifths thing, but once you're done, you don't have to do, again, circle of fifths for the sharps. You can just say, okay, we have G scale, so what's 1 less than G? F, so we have an F sharp. The D scale, what's 1 less than D? C, so we add a C sharp. And then A, 1 less than A, G, so we add a G sharp. E, 1 less than E, D, so we add a D sharp. And we can just keep going. It's a perfect pattern. So yeah, that's just how I remember sharps. But like overall, you should try to remember it in a systematic way. But this is how I do it. So yeah, hopefully this helps. And that's it for major scales.